Freeman.
Speaker, it's a great pleasure to follow the honourable gentleman, not least to inject a little context into the debate that we've heard this afternoon. The truth is this country is reeling, but it's not reeling from 14 years of Tory cuts. It's reeling from the most extraordinary period of economic shocks that this country has ever seen. To remind honourable members opposite, the city crash in 2007-8 cost us £875 billion in QE under the then Right Honourable Member for Kirkcaldy. Brexit cost us £70 billion in QE. The pandemic cost this country £400 billion, and the support the government's put in place to support hard-pressed families with the energy crisis following Ukraine, £40 billion. This country has been through a perfect storm of unprecedented 1 in 400, 500-year events, which is what we are all struggling with. And I welcome this budget, and I want to say something about the cost of living relief for rural areas, mid-Norfolk and others around the country, and something about growth and how we really get this country out of the huge risk of stagflation that comes from the sequence of events that I've just discussed, and how, in a global race for science and technology investment, we have to move faster and bolder to unlock that investment. The pandemic and the Ukraine war have been unprecedented shocks, particularly, Mr Deputy Speaker, to the rural economy, with unbelievable cost of living inflation, which has hit rural areas particularly hard. How much harder? About 150% harder. That is what the Treasury calculates, is the cost impact, the differential cost impact in rural areas. Higher transport costs, higher heating costs, higher dependence on agriculture and food processing, high energy industries, lower incomes, and marginality, rurality, and a very high degree of dependence on those retired pensioners on fixed incomes, and rural councils structurally underfunded for decades by a Whitehall that doesn't understand rural areas. We put up with it for years in an era of cheap energy, but high energy has hit our public services, our charities, our businesses, our households hard, and I'm very grateful for the support that the Chancellor has put in, but I will continue to make the case that rural areas deserve more support and more targeted support for a very particular set of rural problems. But I do welcome in this budget the fuel duty freeze, the household fund, the cost of childcare relief, the child benefit measures, the alcohol duty freeze, the national insurance cut worth £800 for the average worker, including the self-employed, the SME recovery growth scheme, the SME's VAT threshold move, and the triple lock fix for pensioners of 8.6%. That's 4 times the forecast rate of inflation. This was a Chancellor doing everything he possibly could to help the most vulnerable, the most deserving in our society. And I welcome, particularly in Norfolk, the investment in new special free schools for children with SEND, a cause close to my heart, the accelerated East-West rail delivery, crucial for unlocking the potential of our region, and the 10 sports facilities in rural mid-Norfolk. There was good news in a very, very tough budget. But most of all, what I welcome was the measures the Chancellor has taken to support growth and the innovation economy. The £2.5 billion in the NHS with £3.4 billion productivity plan to unlock an extra £30 billion, according to the NHS. The funding for the Faraday Discovery Fellowships, the low Earth orbit leadership in this country, the expert advisory group on R&D tax reliefs, the £100 million for the Alan Turing Institute, the £45 million for our life science research charities, the £5 million for the agri-food launchpad, and the £10 million for the Cambridge cluster. This is investment in the long-term growth of tomorrow on which we all depend to get out of this extraordinary 15-year triple whammy of crises that this country has gone through. We will not, this is what honourable members opposite don't seem to understand, we can't tax our way to prosperity, and we can't spend our way to prosperity. I know they don't want to hear it, but it's the truth. For prosperity, we need to do 2 very big things. 1, reform our public sector to properly tackle the productivity crisis. This government, I'm proud to say, in the 14 years I've been here, has increased health spending by 1/3. You can't see that outcome on the ground. Why? Because the healthcare system is, and it's not any one party's fault, it's structurally geared so that if you deliver more for less, we give you from the Treasury less. We punish innovation and we reward inefficiency, and that has got to change. And I welcome actually quite a lot that the honourable member on the bench opposite, the Shadow Secretary of State for Health, has said about reforming it. But the real key, Mr Deputy Speaker, is growth. We have, as I've consistently argued for 14 years, we have to do more to support innovation-led growth. It's the only form of growth that drives up productivity, that creates new industries, that drives global inward investment. And with debt stubborn and with the risk from all of the shocks that I've outlined still with us, it's more urgent than ever. We will never get out of this crisis by short-term house price booms, short-term consumer booms and booms in the city, but by attracting the private sector investment into the high-growth sectors of life science, agri-tech, bioengineering, clean tech, fusion energy, semiconductors, robotics, tidal energy, satellite manufacturing, quantum computing. We are a powerhouse in the science and research, but we're not yet a powerhouse in attracting the global billions into those sectors and to turn them into solutions around the world. And that innovation is the absolute key both to private sector recovery and, of course, to public sector reform in health particularly, the biggest public service driving the structural deficit, by introducing a much faster wave of innovation in AI, in all sorts of digital health, earlier prevention, better diagnosis. We can reduce the appalling problem of pouring money in and getting less out on the ground. Mr. Deputy Speaker, time is very short, but I want to just conclude. Time is up. Let me just conclude that time is up also.
Member said time is up. I'm terribly sorry.